What's up? Hey, welcome back to the Campfire Passport YouTube uh, channel. Sure, we'll call it a channel. So today we're going to kind of do a how-to uh, little deep dive into welding with car batteries. Uh, Reason I wanted to do this, we had to do it a couple times on the Rubicon. Unfortunately, I know how to do this. So I wanted to tell you how to do it in case you have to do it when you break down on the trail. So we're going to go through a couple different things here. We're going to kind of weld with 3 batteries. We're going to weld with 2 batteries. We're going to play around with a handful of different types of sticks. We get into which ones those are. We're going to use jumper cables, which you have in your truck. We're going to use batteries, which you have in your truck. And we're going to use just regular gloves. We're going to use a couple different things that you typically will carry with you on the trail that don't need a bunch of money to do. So let's get into it. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit the dry erase board here and we're going to talk about kind of the fundamentals behind the batteries and how you hook them up for various situations. So I want to cover a couple of different ways in which you would hook up batteries in your vehicle and why you would hook them up that way. So the first one we're going to talk about is hooking up your batteries in parallel. So you got your positive ends and you got your negative ends. So in parallel, you hook up the 2 positives and then out to here, wherever you're going to end up. You hook up your 2 negatives and end up out here. So the reason you would do in two batteries in parallel is if you've got 12 volts on each of these batteries, which most of your car batteries are going to be 12 volts. If you don't have a 12-volt battery in your car, please let me know in the comments because I'd be curious to see why you do. But let's say you have 10 ampere hours in this one and 10 ampere hours in this one. When you hook them up in parallel like this, you still have 12 volts out here, but now you got 20 ampere hours out here. So you're doubling up your capacity. So you're going to want to use this in an instance where you're trying to build some sort of house system, some sort of house electrical where you're running your fridge, you're running your whatever you want to do in your overlandy vehicle. So that's great for that situation. But what we're doing today is we're welding and we want to run our batteries in series. So we got our 3 batteries here, which we are going to want to use. We've got our positives, our negatives, and we're doing it in series. Cool. So when you're doing your batteries in series, you want to connect your negative to your negative to your positive like this. And then you have your positive coming out this way and your negative coming out this way. Now, when you do it in series, say you got 12 volts here, 12 volts here, 12 volts here, instead of doing where we did it in parallel, where you see we had 12 volts at the end, we now have 12 plus 12 plus 12, which is 36 volts. So even if we have 10 ampere hours here, 10 ampere hours here, 10 ampere hours here, we still have 10 amp hours at the end of the day. So the point of doing it in series is to up your voltage, not your capacity. And that's what we want when we're trying to weld, is we want to up the voltage here to get to the point where we can burn sticks, we can make welds, and we can bind 2 pieces of different metal together. So let's get back to the table and let's start hooking up batteries and show you how to do it. I know we said we're headed back to the table, but I don't want to weld on the table with batteries up on the table. We don't need a piece of slag hitting one of these things and opening it up and causing some sort of shit. So we're going to do these down on the floor here, away from our welding surface, so we have a good distance in between just to be safe. First thing I want to do is I want to test out where each one of these batteries are at, so we have kind of a baseline before we start welding at how much voltage is in each one of these batteries. It's not going to tell us the capacity. We're obviously going to be burning ampere hours by pushing electricity through each one of these batteries, but at least it can tell us where our voltage is at and if you're going to be able to turn your truck back on after welding for a while with your battery. So this battery here, we got 12.3. This battery here, we got 11.7. And this guy here, we got 12.2. Now we're going to take our jumper cables and we're going to start setting these batteries up into series so we can start welding. So going back from my drawing here, we want to hook up, everybody separate. Oh, keeping everybody separate. We want our positive, and we want really good connections here to negative, and then we want positive to negative. So you'll see we got our two ends here. We got our negative and our positive left over. So these are what we're going to connect our welding jumper cables off of. Important to keep those separate because as soon as you connect these two, those two ends are going to be live. So we want to make sure that we keep them separate and that we're not touching them together, because if we touch them together, they're going to arc and create a whole mess of things that we don't want to deal with. So we're going to go our positive over here. Connection. And our negative over here. I'm just going to move these guys over there just so everybody's nice and separate. So now next we're going to test and make sure at the end of these two, if we connect our handy dandy multimeter at the end of these, we should have approximately 36 volts. We got 36.9. So that's exactly what we want at the end of these two jumper cables. So let's move to the table. Let's start welding. Kind of want to go through a couple different rods or sticks that you can use when welding. So the first one here we have is a 6011 3/32 rod. This one here is the 6011 1/8" rod. And then the last one that we're going to do is we've got the 6013 1/8" rod. Now, this one here is more commonly known as kind of feel like your farmer's rod or your wreck-it rod, or sticker, or whatever you want to call it, because this one is really known amongst the kind of fix-it community, the do-it-yourselfers, as the rod that will weld junk metal. Like this will do anything. So I do want to go through these other two that I kind of carry around with me, but this one is the commonly known rod to use. So the 6013 1/8" rod, common rod, 6011 1/8" rod, not so common, but still carried around. Then the 6011 3/32, not so common to be carried around, but we're going to try it anyway. So let's get to welding and kind of test out the difference between the three of these while we have three batteries in series. So first thing we're going to do, we want to get some sort of hand protection on. Um, you're not going to carry welding gloves with you on the trail, so I'm just going to do exactly what we all carry with us on the trail. Well, some of us is just some regular gloves because when you're welding, you want at least a little bit of something to protect your hands. The other thing I'm going to use is my auto darkening lens that goes into one of my older garbage welding helmets. Um, you can get just this on Amazon or any sort of, cheap market website for probably about 30 bucks. It's thin, it's nothing. You don't need the whole helmet when you're on the trail. You just need something to hold in front of your face while you're trying to weld so you can see what you're doing and at least make some sort of progress. Because if you're trying to close your eyes, you're not going to get a great weld. If you're trying to open your eyes, you're going to get an even worse outcome than that, which most of you know. So, highly suggest at least carrying one of these around with you because they're thin, they're easy, they're lightweight, uh, and they're cheap. So, at least carry that around. We're going to do first the 6011 3/32 rod, and we're going to see how it goes on this steel right here. First thing we're going to need to do is connect our rods. This is a little bit counterintuitive to what you think it would be. You want to connect this positive to your working surface. You don't want to connect your negative to your working surface, positive to your working surface. And then your rod goes in the negative side. With these rods, you're probably going to have to bust off some of the flux here to make sure it seats well, just to make sure you can get good contact with the rod or the stick. Sorry, keep calling it a rod. Get good contact with your stick to make sure you're getting good current through it and that you can weld appropriately. We got good contact, got our glasses. Let's see how the 6011 3/32 welds. Not too bad, actually. Burns kind of fast, but it did burn pretty well. So let's move to our 6011 1/8" rod. Not too shabby either. It didn't burn as fast, which was nice. I got a lot more weld out of the 1/8" rod than I did the 3/32 rod without wasting, not wasting, but not using as much on the weld. So now we're going to move to the 6013 rod. That didn't feel as clean for some reason, which is not my experience. Yeah, but let's break off these welds and kind of see what we're dealing with here. So let's take a look at these welds that we just did here and kind of see where they turned out and kind of what our thoughts and feelings on them are. So this is the, holy hell, 6011 3/32 rod. This is the 6011 1/8" rod, and this is the 6013 1/8" rod. So that 6013 there, it burned real fast, and it did not seem to hold up very well. The 6011 1/8" rod, it burned and it felt good when I was welding, but it just didn't I don't know, laid down that great of a weld from what I'm looking at. Sorry, that's hot. I still haven't figured that out yet, apparently. And then this is our 6013. It definitely laid down a better weld. It seemed to make a little bit more difficulty when in laying it down, but it definitely made really good penetration, especially if we turn it over and look at the backside here. We can see our 6011 332nd. We can see our 6011 eighth and our 6013 eighth. You can really see that that penetration actually just continuously gets hotter as we went up here. So far, I'm sticking with that 6013. So let's try a couple more things and see how it does. One thing I want to do is you can see this metal here is absolute garbage. It's full of rust. I'm pretty sure there's paint on here. I have no idea where I got this from. We're going to try this 6013 on it and see how it does on that. Well, it definitely did burn a hole right through that, but it was burning pretty dang clean. I guess the point of that right there is that you're not really going to be burning through thin metal in a extreme scenario. So the things you're going to be trying to fix are, differentials. Honestly, that's probably your biggest thing is trying to weld up a diff. You're going to break big things that you need to weld. Uh, it's still holding, but you're not going to be welding thinner metal. So you shouldn't have to worry about burning through it. Like when we were on the Rubicon and I welded up that diff, it's not thin. You want to burn hot, you want to burn and get good penetration. So we'll try some other stuff. We'll try the 6011 332nds rod on here, but I don't know if that's any sort of some like conclusive information. Okay, so that 6011 332nds also burned through this thinner metal. So it's probably the fact that we're running off at 36 volts. Don't think that that means anything other than the fact that it just burns hot when you got 36 volts running through it. We can stick this 6011 on here just for fun and see what happens. Okay, 6011 also burned through that thinner metal. Let's just try and shove down some just lines flat on here. No angle, no nothing. Let's just put down some beads on flat steel. First one here is that 6011. So now we're going to move to this 6011 332nds rod. This is that 6011 rod that we were working, the 6011 eighth inch rod. It seemed to burn really good, but that bead just doesn't feel right. It feels open and weird. I'm obviously not a stick welder. This isn't my forte. This is, again, this is a trail fix. The 6013, it didn't feel like it was welding well, but it just, that bead looks much, much better. And it, again, I bet you on this backside, it just burned hotter and feels better at the end of the day. That 6011 332nds is a hodgepodge doo-doo weld. That's just right out of there. So we're done with this 3/32 rod for now. Um, so the debate now is just between the 6013 and the 6011 1/8 inch rod. 6013 is what I typically lean on. The build up on it, as I'm sure you saw in the when I was breaking it off, was a lot bigger, but it just that weld comes out much cleaner. So I guess screw it. Let's do a little more welding. Throw a couple more things on here and see what we can weld. Just weld more garbage on garbage. So here's our 6013 and here's our 6011. Both 1/8 inch rod. After breaking off the flux, that 6013 looks fantastic. Like I could almost be a certified welder there with that thing. Just kidding. That 6011 just doesn't come out right. It doesn't quite burn as well. You really can tell that this one, the 6013, just really burns through all of the garbage. Mind you, this is painted. This hasn't been cleaned in years. This is just garbage metal. And I mean, that's mostly what we're dealing with on the trail. So that 6013 is my choice when I am out on the trail and I've got nothing better else to deal with. So yeah, 6013, 1/8 inch rod. So conclusion after running the 36 volts, we had the three different rods here that we were running off. We had the 6011 3/32, we had the 6011 1/8 inch, and we had the 6013 1/8 inch. 6013 1/8 inch, that's typically what I have always leaned on. Uh, by no other standard other than that's what I was told by farmers and other wheelers. It's just that's what you wanted. But now after testing it, I see why. Like these welds come out so much better with that 6013. You got a little more slag to burn off or break off. Sorry, and not even it's not slag, but you got more flux to burn off or break off, but it's a lot better weld. It penetrates, it does its job. And when you're on the trail, that's what you want. You can deal with a little extra time breaking some stuff off and cleaning things up, but that's what you want. So 6013 1/8 inch rod, carry that. On that note, we've been working off 36 volts. So let's go back, let's test the voltage of the batteries, see what we've gone down at, and then let's move to 24 and see if 24 will do it with you. Back down here on the floor, I have not disconnected the batteries. So first thing I'm going to do is just kind of see where we're at both ends with batteries in series. We're at 36.1. We were at 36.9. So now we're at 36.1. Let's disconnect these and see where each battery sits. So we were at 12.3 on this one. We're at 12.0 now. We were at 11.7 and now we're at 11.4 on this one. We were at 12.2 and now we're at 12.0. So we lost 0.2 volts on this, 0.3 and 0.3. It's actually not that bad. So you could still start your vehicle with either one of these batteries after doing all that fun little welding up there that we did, and probably some that you didn't even see in this video. I started having fun and seeing what we could do. So one of the stories, if you got three batteries, you're not going to drain them to the point where you can't start your rig after welding with them. But next thing, let's hook these things up in 12 or 24 volts. So we're just going to put two in series this time and see if we can weld with them. We want our positive and our negative hooked up. And then to our welding end, we want our negative and our positive. You want to make sure get a really good connection with these because if you don't, you're going to start arcing across. Lead's going to melt pretty quick, and you don't want to toast your terminals because you didn't get a good connection. So we're going to really work on making sure we get a good connection because we're going to have a lot of electricity flowing through these, and we don't want to toast them. So we got 24 volts. Let's definitely check before we get started. Okay, we got 23.8 between the three of them, or between the two of these here. So that is about appropriate. So let's hit the table and let's try and weld. Definitely tell a difference between that and the 36 volts. It just doesn't want to start as well. It doesn't, you just don't feel that burn. So we'll try the 6013 here and see if we find any difference. That just doesn't even want to weld. This is the only one I got hope for on the 24 volts now at this point in time is the 6011 3/32 rod. I think that it might have just the it's a thinner rod or stick. I feel like it might actually be able to burn with this, but the other two did not. So let's try that. That just didn't even want to weld either. I Yep, not sold on 24 volts. Neither of those wanted to actually weld. They were soft. They did not make good contact. They did not ignite well when you stick the rod down. I just, no, 24 volts just does not work, at least in my experience right now. I've always done 36. The 36 works great. 24, nope, does not work. So, quick summation of what we went over. You're going to put your batteries in series to weld. That's the first and foremost important thing you're going to do. You can try with 24 volts, but I don't think you're going to find success in that. You'll want to hit the 36. So you're going to need 3 batteries. But good news is that if you're overlanding, you probably already got 3 batteries or you got 2 batteries with you at least, and you got a buddy with you that probably has 2 batteries, if not at least one. So you got 3 batteries at your disposal. All you need is 2 jumper cables and then a stack of sticks. Um, if you're going to carry sticks, carry the 6013 1/8" rod. That is what I have found the most success here with today. That just burned the best, got the best penetration. You could probably find the same. You could probably find success with that 6011 1/8" rod. It just doesn't do the job. It just didn't come out as well here sitting in this garage. And I tried to really recreate trail situations. I've done 6013 on the trail. It works. It's gotten through. I There's a guy that blew up his diff and he's still running that diff today that I welded up with that 6013. So run that 6013. That costs you maybe 30 bucks for a 5 pound box of these, and then maybe 30 bucks for a mask. So for $60, you can be prepared to weld up on the trail and get yourself out of a sticky situation, whatever it may be. It might be a diff, it might be a radius arm, it might be whatever it is, but you can get yourself off the trail, and that's what's important. So, if I missed anything, if you want to know any more, hit that, go down to the comment section, put a comment in there. We'll get it in there and we'll figure it out. I don't know everything. I'm just some guy who's trying to figure this all out, and this is what we're doing. So, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.